Today we are going to discuss about the clean room cost, quality and environmental sustainability. This is a topic, a microbiological perspective of this. Clean room. The moment we heard clean room, what comes to our mind? Something, a living space which is clean, which is visibly good to look at. But you see how the virus has impacted. It is unseen. So clean room is just not the clean room. Clean room has certain definition which we are going to trail through today and also understand what it is, how to quantify it, how to get it done. A clean room is a controlled environment that is designed to remove pollutants like dust, microorganisms, aerosol particles and airborne particles. Like all these micro particles like bacteria, virus, fungi, all these are microbes which need to be controlled. So a best example of your in-house controlled containment is your refrigerator. You see what you do, you store it. So microbes are contained. You keep it outside, you get grown molds and all that. So a clean room is essentially something which has a complete filtration of these microbes, dust, air pollutants and all this. So what is a basic requirement is your clean room has to be filtered out all the pollutants, the living pollutants and the non-living pollutants. This is what is required. Now when the pollutants are filtered out to provide the cleanest environment possible, and this is with a controlled temperature, humidity and pressure for a variety of wide applications. Now clean rooms has been used in wide industries, aerospace, defense, it is being used in life science, hospitals, everywhere, and especially in semiconductor industry. And we being pharma and life science professional, this is a backbone. It is like where you do it, where you manufacture your drug product, which goes into the humans. So that is the criticality of a clean room for a pharma and life science professional. Coming to the cost of clean room. Yes, cost of clean room. It is very costly. How it is costly? So this is about $200 to $550 approximately is a global standard for installing a clean room of ISO 628. As you go little ISO 5, it may cost up to $800 to $1,000 depending on the application. Suppose I am making a viral product. So you require more containment, more controls, more automation. So what do? You have to put more money into it and then also more facility, more controls. So basically all this cost gets involved into the clean room. Now this is a standard of a clean room. When you see ISO 6, it is around $300 to $400 for a smaller room. When it goes above, suppose it's a larger square feet room, then the cost comes down. This is an economy of scale. So usually what happens when you are manufacturing, you go a little larger, so that what happens is you reduce the other filter area cost and other cost and all. So in the inception stage itself, what you do is you decide the process, how much you want to do, whether you want to expand it, whether in future you want to go for expansion and all. Then you better design a bigger change room, bigger clean rooms. So this is for 6, 7 and 8. Now this can be assembled and installed at site, or this also can be stick built. That means you install it in the facility. So these are the two options available for the clean room. So once your clean room is installed, the toughest part comes, operation. So what is important for operation is, once the clean room is installed, you have to see that it is maintained at the qualified state. Suppose you qualified it for grade B, you need to make it in operation grade B. Your standard should not go to grade C and grade D. So throughout the cycle, you have to maintain it. So integrity of the clean room is important, and this means that you have to minimize the contamination risk and also limit a small number of trained employees and regular cleaning and maintenance, and also continuous monitoring has to be done. You have to monitor the viable particles, you have to monitor the non-viable particles, and also you need to do a recertification, periodic recertification of the clean room, whether it is in the same qualified state where you installed and you kept it. Now what can happen if your clean room operation is not good? If your clean room operation is not good, it can result in a contamination event. And if that contamination event can cost you huge on your product and your business, your pharma business, life science business, we are all part of it, and we know how it can impact and how it can stop your production. So what are the sources basically? The sources basically for contamination are personal, inadequate handling and disposal of materials, and then inadequate cleaning and disinfection, like a airborne disinfection or a surface disinfection. If inadequate, then you will also have a problem. Suppose surface disinfection is inadequate, then what happens? You land up into a fungal counts, you land up into bacterial counts, and you don't exceed your OOLs. Now, if you also have, suppose, inadequate controls of your HVAC and your humidity temperature, suppose your controls are not good, then also you can result in a failure. So this is about the operation of the clean room. So it is very important that when you operate the clean room for the process, you need to have standards and also follow it religiously. Now, how much clean is required and how to quantify? So I told you, visible clean is not clean. We need to quantify it. GMP requires you to quantify the regulators, all. Even how do you quantify? I can't say this is clean. So now you also have to quantify. So quantifying is by how many particles exist in the room per cubic meter. So every industry, every application is different, and it requires different level of cleanliness. By this I mean, for a terminal sterilized product, you may require a grade C. For aseptic, you may require A by B. For a lyophilization, you may require A by B. So different products, you may require for a normal, let us say, oral suspension, you may require a normal, clean, controlled environment. So different categories of clean rooms are required based on the product you manufacture. For example, vaccines, you may require a grade B by A. You may require additional biosafety cabinets. So here what we have to do in this particular clean room is, you need to quantify how many particles are there per cubic meter. Challenging. So this is important because you have to control the contamination, and also if you don't control contamination, you are going to have an impact on the business and also the product. A product may be life-saving product. Suppose sterilized products, aseptic products are there, injectables. So what happens if I manufacture in a facility where there is no clean room controls? You keep inject the person a wrong product, because of which the person may also lose the life. So it is a life-threatening. So it is very important as a pharma professional and life science professional that we need to have the clean room standards as the highest, and also religiously follow the limits established. So this is basically the US FDA requirement. So US FDA says that for ISO 5, it requires around 3,520 particles per meter cube. For ISO 6, it is 35,200. For ISO 7, it is 3,52,000. And for ISO 8, it is 35 lakhs. And now if you go for this is about the particles. And now if you go for the microbes, for ISO 5, which is grade A, the limit is 1. 1 means it is nil actually. For grade B or ISO 6, it is 7 and 3. This is the regulatory limit. You can establish your internal limits once you have a trend and all that. And for ISO 7, it is 10 and 5. For ISO 8, it is 150. This is about all of you are aware that we have EU Annex draft has been revised, and it is under finalization stage. Here what happened is, earlier there was a limit for 5 microns also. Now this is not applicable, it is exempted with. So here you have grade A, not applicable, and for 5 microns in operation is also not applicable. For grade B, it is at rest, it is not applicable, at operation it is applicable. So the other things are same. The C and D, there is no change in the revised Annex 1 draft. So what is important we have to understand is, as per the EU Annex 1, the contamination, they have emphasized on the contamination, and they say that the contamination control and steps taken to minimize the risk of contamination from microbial and particle sources are a series of successfully linked events and measures. These are typically assessed, controlled, and monitored individually, but their collective effectiveness should be considered altogether. Here comes something called contamination control strategy. So all the pharma and life sciences people are working on this. For any unit, you should also have a strategy, how you want to control this, how you want to implement the measures you have to do. So a lot of focus has been done in the EU Annex 1 for this. So these are the quality standards for clean rooms. As you are all aware, we follow the ISO standards. So ISO standards has a group of standards 14644, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8, 9 also. Now when you see ISO 1, 2, 4 are applicable for clean rooms. Now if you see ISO 1464441, here they say that how do you classify a clean room based upon the number of particles, and also it gives the what you call statistical approach. What are the samples required, how much you have to do, and also this also gives the adaptation to the macro particle for sampling volume. It means that earlier there was that much calculation was not there, how much you have to sample. So here a macro particle descriptor has been introduced in the recent ISO 1. So to determine the sampling locations, we use a formula location is equal to square root by A, area. Okay, for all rooms larger than 1000 square meter, it is 27 into area by 1000. So you also have in ISO 14641 a table where you can have a ready reference how many sample locations has to be sampled for making the particle count. So the other one is the quality standards for clean room, the ISO 2. This also has been revised in 2015. 1464, 2 means 1464442. So in this what has happened is, they have given importance to the routine monitoring. So based on a risk based, suppose it is not necessary that if I have 50 locations, I should monitor all the 50 locations. No need. Based on the 50, you form a trend, and then risk based you do a monitoring, and you periodically monitor and also recertify it. This is the requirement for ISO 14644 2015. So now come to the quality standards part 3. So part 3 gives you the tests that are required for the clean rooms, test methods. So depending on the test methods here, there are 2 categories. One is for the unidirectional airflow zones, and the other one is for the non-unidirectional airflow zones. For the unidirectional airflow zones, you can also go into the as-built or operation or in the rest condition. So these 3 conditions you can do all the required tests for the clean room. So as I said to you, these are defined. This we have to follow when I say my clean room means to ISO 6. So I need to follow all this and also build up in my system. So the other one is ISO 14644, which gives the clean room design, construction and startup. So what are the requirements that goes into design, like a filter size, filter area, the number of air changes you need to put. All these design aspects of the clean room is in this document. This is a reference document. So the other one, the most important, what we are talking about, the contamination control. Earlier there was a ISO 14698 2003, and this is replaced by EN 17141. This is a very detailed European Union document which gives the biocontamination controls that are required for the clean room. It also talks about the vendor from which you are taking the disinfectants also should be qualified to that extent. That means you need to standardize it. It is just not you just take something and do it. No. All seriously stepwise it is given. And also it also talks about the remote air samplers and all these things, automated controls, automated sampling and things like that. So also one more important part in this is again the quality risk management. So quality risk management, and based on that, what are the controls you need to apply. So once you installed the clean room according to standards, you made a plan and all, then what you do, you have to qualify it. You need to qualify by using certain standards. Again, this qualification requires you to do filter leakage and integrity testing. It also requires you to do the airflow measurement and volume and velocity. The air pressure difference. As we all are aware that differential pressure is one of the most important part in a clean room. Suppose your DP is, some problem comes in your differential pressure, gone. Really gone. So DP is most important, one of the most important for an operating clean room. So once you design, you say that my DP has to be this much, my DP has to be this much adjacent to this room, and then you go for the qualification. Once you qualify it, you have to maintain it to the set standards and in the routine operation also. The other one next is the airflow direction and the visualization. Next is your microbial, airborne and surface contamination. So this is a new addition. That means what, your surface contamination and what you call aerial contamination also has to be validated. Earlier this was not there, so this is a new one. Then the other thing is temperature, RH and recovery testing and containment leak testing. Containment leak testing is applicable to things like isolator and all. This is about the, as we all were talking about the clean room cost of operation, the cost of operating clean room is very huge and also leaves an environmental footprint of excess water usage and excess energy usage, also excess discard waste. Like suppose you are using ready to use gowns, so you are dumping the environment. So it all gives a lot of what you call environmental damage apart from cost. So how do we sustain the environment and also do the costing for a better clean room operation and for a better this one. So now if you see the environmental sustainability of clean rooms, how to achieve this. So the other thing, we are all doing building management systems where our HVACs are mechanical and electrical controls are done. This is all almost done in all the industries. And also the other one is a facility management system where the environment is monitored. This is also being done. So here what we need to do here is we need to link it with the artificial intelligence. Now link it with the artificial intelligence means suppose the bioload in the clean room is less, automatically the air changes has to reduce. So automatically the conditions, the DP, all that you have to reduce. So you need to have these controls by design. So once you do this, 50% can be reduced in the energy. And also your filter life. Suppose pre-filters, filters and all, you can reduce. So once you link this artificial intelligence mechanism into your regular BMS and FMS integrated systems, definitely this can add value to our clean room operation cost. So this has to be compliant with the CFR and GAMP regulations. Whatever we do, as we are highly regulated industry and we need to comply with. So these are the other things which we are, graphical representation, alarming, report generation and routing. These are all the common features of this particular FMS and BMS system. So the other, for environmental sustainability, what we can do as a pharma and a life science manufacturer, we can form a Go Green team. Go Green team means these teams like formed by engineers, microbiologists, QA and manufacturing. So they decide, okay, I don't have period of activity, so I can lessen the air changes. So mind you that air changes are a requirement, but if you're not operating and your air changes can be reduced by using what we call variable drives. It is called variable frequency drives. You can use variable frequency drives and you can reduce a little bit of your air changes. Nothing happens. There will not be any increase in bioload, nothing. And a lot of research has been done on this. So definitely if these people, a Go Green team who works on cost reduction and environmental sustainability in each unit or in each what you call pharma or a life science industry, definitely we can reduce the cost of the what you call clean room operation. So then this is one more thing is your decentralized air handling units. So you, instead of having a very big grouped air handling units, you have small units of operation. So it is very easy. Suppose you are not going to operate, let us say one area, you just reduce it and then operate in the other. So with this, if you do it, then you can reduce it. So decentralized air handling units. The other one is water usage. So we know that cooling requires water. So you recirculate this water, you reduce the water footprint, and also you recycle it, the water usage. How can you recycle? You can see how much you can put filters at the drain, and then you recycle that water, and then remove the filters, filtered redundant retinate periodically. So by this you can reduce the water footprint on the environment. It will be a great to do that, because we also creating green sustainability to the environment. So it's very important nowadays. We need to protect the environment. So the other one is the biosafety cabinets, which are with the auto controls. For a life science industry, specifically vaccines and all, you should have biosafety cabinets which doesn't go into the rooms. It should go exhaust, and then that exhaust also has to be auto controlled. Then the other thing is the HVAC right size. You should also always design a HVAC of a required size only. If you do a little larger and all, and if a filter surface area increases of the room, your cost is going to increase. You just do what is adequate. Then you have chilled beams. This is also a new technology. So earlier people used to use fan for air cooling and all. So instead of using a fans and all, what you have to do is, you take a chilled beams, and that chilled beams are continuously flushed, and the air goes into the chilled beam and hits it and comes back. So air gets cooled. So you don't spend anything on water, and you don't spend anything on the what you call fan energy. So you are saving energy again. So the other one is dehumidifiers. For places where a lot of humidity is there, you could use dehumidifiers. Then next is your personal, related to the personal, reusable gowning. So many people do this. We clean it and auto sterilize and all that. That is a routine feature. Then we also have adequate cleaning and disinfectation. And in disinfectation and cleaning, use biodegradable products. So this is one of the very important. Why we have to clean and disinfect is because unless you clean and disinfect it properly, your load is going to increase. Once your bio load is going to increase, automatically your clean room contamination risk is going to increase. So definitely you need to do this. And then you use clean room consumables to control particles like tacky mat, gloves, hand sanitizers, etc. And then the other one is, as our colleagues were earlier telling about this, fogging, which is very important for adequate airborne disinfection. Also it is a requirement now for Europe, because they are saying that you have to validate the aerial decontamination. So clean room controls, which are COVID specific 19. So what we need to do as a drug manufacturers and pharma manufacturers, there are certain guidances which are coming from US FDA in June 2020 and September 2020 to resume to the normal operations with respect to the COVID-19. So specifically, if you see, it says that our controls currently are adequate. Still, you need to do an assessment of all the contamination controls available, and then if any controls are required, you add. This is for the pharma. For vaccine, life sciences, biological product manufacturing facility, they require that you also have a viral control strategy in place. That is the most important for the vaccines and life science. The other one was clean and sanitize the non-production areas. We all sanitize where we are manufacturing. We forget the offices, the sitting places, the corridors. So this carry contamination. This is a carrier to the contamination. So here, this is also one of the requirement. And then update the existing procedures and of cleaning and sanitization. Suppose you have procedures, have a review, and then if anything is not sufficient with respect to COVID-19, then update these procedures of sanitization, cleaning. You may require a little more, so do that. And then you also require a more frequent cleaning, sanitization and sterilization of surfaces in the production areas. By production areas, two types of surfaces can be there. One is the product contact surfaces and the other one is a non-product contact surfaces. Product contact surfaces, we are all aware that which comes into the contact with the product, like an equipment or a consumable, so many things which just directly comes into the contact with the product. So such things you need to definitely sterilize, and if at all some products which don't require that, you have to just make a cleaning sanitization, a more frequent cleaning sanitization. Now if you see surfaces like door handles, equipment latch, then countertops, control panels continuously is, operator continuously touches the control panel. So these things also has to be sanitized, and we cannot sterilize it, so we need to sanitize this. Now the special attention should be paid to the sanitizing, sterilizing equipment and product contact surfaces. This is what is told here. And then expanding the existing procedures. So this is one more important thing. Earlier in grade D, grade C and all, that much of requirement is not there. But expanding existing procedures to include the using of gloves, face mask, gowning, where such measures were not previously required. Also restrictions on employees' access to manufacturing area. So whatever required, that only you allow. Unnecessary, not required. The other one is, these are all the measures which we are going through for the drug manufacturers and the life science manufacturers, which can be taken additionally with respect to C19. And a lot has been done. A lot is being done, and we also need to do it in a systematic way. So here, if you see this, the other one which is important for all of us is viral decontamination. So EPA has given a list of lot of viral disinfectants, which is of use for all of us, of pharma manufacturers and life science. I have given the hyperlink, if you can always have a look at it.